Hi everyone, it's me, Lady Knight, and today I'm going to do the rest of the questions for 31 Days of Tarot, hosted by Ethony, and that's question 25 to 31, and let's get started. I will put timestamps in the description box below if you want to fast forward to a specific question. So, number 25, do you have tarot self-care rituals that are only for your personal practice? Not really. Not that I'm aware of. Tarot self-care rituals. Does that mean the way I'm taking care of myself using tarot? Or how I take care of my decks? Well, I keep them all in their boxes. The boxes that they came with. And I store these boxes in a bigger box, or I have multiple boxes. And that's how I take care of my cards, because I don't really want them to fade from sunlight or anything. And rituals for myself. Well, I only really have one ritual, so to speak. If I read for a person other than me, I will always take the deck and reset it by putting them in the right order. The order I like. And in doing that, I kind of press the reset button, and as long as I'm reading for that person, I will leave them in whatever order that came up in that reading. And if I use them for that person again next time, and no one else has used them, I will still use them the way they were the last time. But if I then read for a new person, I would always start putting them back in order. So that's like the only ritual that I really have. Resetting them, kind of. What tarot deck do you wish you could get into or vibe with, but just can't, and why? Well, the only deck that... Well, actually there's two decks. The Rider-Waite-Smith, the classic tarot deck, I bought it, I think around 2005, 6-ish, kind of. And I bought it because I thought I needed to have it in order to be a real tarot reader. Because a real tarot reader has to have that deck. It's like the deck. And so that's why I bought it, but I never really connected with it. I read with it, but I don't really, I don't get a lot of intuition going. It's just like, I learn the cards, I recite from memory, but I don't really have a bond with these cards. I don't know why. Maybe it's the specific style of the deck that I have, because I know there's a lot of different versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith out there with different colors, and maybe that could be a reason, I don't know. And then another deck that I'm probably never really going to connect with is the Crowley Tarot, because the images, some of them are really beautiful, and others I just, like, no. And then it's a pip deck, and so I don't really work with pip decks. I like the scenic decks, and so, yeah, these are two decks. I know they're like the decks, but I just can't. I don't know. So, number 27. How do you pick your tarot decks for readings? When I read for other people, and I go to their place, or we meet at a neutral place, I would take 2 or 3 decks with me, and I would base that decision on their personal taste. Like, if I know that they like pretty pictures, I would choose a deck with pretty pictures rather than something very artistic that's like, yeah. Do I have an example? Yeah, so if they like pretty pictures, I would probably take something like my Lo Scarabeo. If they liked something more modern, I would probably take my Röhrig. So depending on what the person is like, I would choose the deck, or the decks that I take with me. And for myself, if and when I do read for myself, then it's like whatever I'm in the mood for. I don't have certain preferences. It's like, oh, I haven't worked with this one in a while, let's take this one out. Or, I loved what that deck and I did together yesterday, let's try to recreate that moment, you know. So I don't really have a certain way of picking the decks. But that might change after I've done the deck interviews, and if my decks really tell me what they want to be used for, and I know in advance what someone would ask me, then maybe I would pick the decks according to specific topics. Question 28. What is your go-to tarot book? Why that one? I think for me, I don't really have a go-to tarot books. I don't really have that many tarot books in general, like a handful. But whatever deck I'm reading with usually comes with a guidebook, and that in that moment would be my tarot go-to book. And yeah, so in that moment it would always be the guidebook of that specific deck. Question 29. How do you feel about tarot deck modification? Draw on them, trim them, or things like that. Why not? I am very afraid of cutting into the cards. That's why I don't trim them. And also, I don't want to make them smaller. I actually like cards that are a little bit bigger. So, yeah, trimming them, way too afraid. Don't want to do it. But I have looked into gilding the edges. I've watched quite a few videos on that subject, and I am going to try that because I would like to have some of my decks with colored edges, and thankfully I have a big arts and crafts supply stash at home because arts and crafts is my hobby, and I do have different shades of gold, like color paint. I have a white color that has a pearl shimmer. I'm interested to see if that could work. I have like purple and blue and green and all kinds of colors, and I think that's something that I'm interested in. Also silver and copper and rose gold. So I want to try gilding the edges, and that's why I'm really thankful for all these extra cards that come with a tarot deck usually. So I have a card that I could try it on before like working on the actual deck, and I think I would try it first on one of the decks that I have as a backup instead of ruining the original, so to speak, and use the extra cards to see if the color stays on the edges or if it bleeds into the cardstock, or yeah, what it looks like when it's dry. But that's something that I'm interested in, and that's my arts and crafts project for this year. Yeah, I don't write on my cards. I don't put extra keywords or something on there. And since I don't trim the edges, I don't need to write on them, like if I trimmed away the edges. So, and my Röhrig, I'm going to modify. I just got myself a label maker, and I am going to change the Spanish names to English, so then I have an English and a German deck. But that's as far as my modification goes. Question 30. Do you carry out predictive tarot readings? Yes, no, why not? Predictive tarot readings. Not so much. I guess in the beginning, like in the very beginning, I tried to predict outcomes, but nowadays it's, or like for the last years, it has been more about how can I or the person that I'm reading for get to where they want to go, and like what's the way that they have to take in order to get there. And that's the way that I read now, and that's what I actually prefer. I don't want to predict anything because nothing is set in stone, and so I try to give them an option and show them like, okay, if you go this way, then that is what you have to look out for if you want to get to XYZ in the end, you know. And I wouldn't call that prediction. It's more like helping along the way, giving advice, but not predicting anything. And the last question, what question or questions do you most often ask the tarot for yourself or others? For myself, the question that I ask the tarot is mostly to find out about a person that I'm like either working with, like what's the dynamic between us, and like are they telling me the truth? Can I rely on them to get to know them better? Or if there's something like I'm not really sure if I read them right, like face to face, so I need some more information, and that's when I would turn to the cards. And I also do, like at the beginning of the year, I have like 12 cards, one for each month and the next year, just like a basic, you know, what do I have to look out for? Like the kind of like a warning for certain things, or like, okay, that's the time when you can breathe, and that's the time when you really need to focus and be on your toes. So that's what I do for myself. And others usually come to me for relationship questions, like either they are in a relationship and they want to know what's going on, most likely when it's not going very well. And when they're single, they want to know when or how or who is going to be the next relationship. And the other question that most often comes up is career and finances. Like, do I stay in my job? Do I go somewhere else? Or like when would be a perfect time to change careers or something like that. So most likely love and career. That's the two things. Yeah. And that was the 31 questions for 2019. Thank you very much for joining me while I answered these questions for myself and for you if you were watching. And I hope to see you in one of my next videos. Until then, take care.